You think you could shoot, huh?
Alright, so I wasn't expecting to make a second one this early. You're gonna have to forgive the lack of visuals for this one, because I'm not gonna risk possibly getting in trouble. So, how do I even begin this? You can throw this on in the background as you're working on something. So, way back in the day, like the early 2010s, I'm gonna say around 2013, there was test footage revealed for a Popeye movie made by Gendy Tartakovsky for Sony Animation. And people were like, oh, okay, this looks interesting. This looks neat. But Sony did not end up making it. I remember there were leaks about certain emails. I remember back in the day there were leaks from the head of Sony at the time, Amy Pascal. I guess there were concerns about if people would care about Popeye. And this was around when Sony Animation was like a little up in the air in quality. I think now it's a little more consistent with stuff like Into the Spider-Verse and the Mitchells versus the Machines. But this was a little bit of a perilous time for them. And people like to say that, oh, they did the Emoji Movie instead of the Popeye movie. But from what I understand, that decision was made like a long time ago. It wasn't they worked on the Emoji Movie instead of Popeye. It was they weren't going to work on Popeye anyway. But, you know, thank God the emojis have way more cultural significance, am I right? I say all this because the animatic for the entire Popeye movie was leaked online. And it's a damn shame Sony did not go with this idea, because it's actually pretty good. I won't link it. I don't want to get anybody in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble. But it's actually pretty good. So the idea is that Popeye as a kid, he was dying. His dad brought him to the Sea Hag. The Sea Hag was able to cure him, but in exchange he was going to like keep Popeye, but his dad got him out, along with taking her crystal eye. And his Popeye's dad sends him out, and he becomes an orphan, and years later he finds the jewel again, and he wants to find his dad. Olive Oil is by the way, I don't know like barely anything about the Popeye mythos. I don't know the comics. I barely know the cartoons, so, you know, take all this with a grain of salt, plus I just woke up. So, Olive Oil is like a rich heiress on the hill, and she doesn't get to go out anywhere. Bluto is also an orphan who was raised with Popeye, and he's just a straight-up jerk. You actually don't get to see a lot of him in this movie. So through a grand mix-up, Popeye accidentally kidnaps Olive Oil, which is like a fun little subversion of what you would expect. And, you know, Bluto says he's going to go out and get her, but then ends up just kind of sitting in the middle of the ocean for pretty much the majority of the movie. Yeah, Bluto is not the villain in this. It's a woman called the Sea Hag, who I think is a Popeye villain, but I can say here are some of my major criticisms. One, the Sea Hag is kind of boring. She just kind of shows up here and there. She's not really impactful as like a villain. I think that's the reason they kind of go with Bluto in the cartoons a lot, because he's a little more interesting to see Popeye beat up. Yeah. This movie has certain points where the jokes are just like obviously put in there through corporate mandates. Like there's a joke where all the animals near the ocean are farting. Popeye wakes up and he's like, oh, you know, it's can't beat the fresh ocean air. And it's like, yeah, okay, whatever. you could tell that was probably like a mandated joke. Yeah, not all the jokes land, but a lot of them do. And again, I think, yeah, this movie could have done with like a rewrite or two, but the core of the movie is between Popeye, Olive Oil, and I think his name is Jeep. It's like this little yellow thing. Doesn't want to be called a dog, so it's a little yellow thing that kind of just teleports. But the main story with Popeye and Olive Oil is actually pretty good. It can get a little cliche here and there, but you know what? That's kind of the vibe that they're going for. It's an adventure feel. And it's a shame that Sony Pictures didn't want to go with this. I mean, there's not a lot I can say, because obviously it's an animatic. An animatic is not something that's fully animated. It's just to kind of give a rough idea for each scene. And, despite it being like a rough idea for how scenes would go, I was engaged the whole time watching it. I was entertained, which is amazing. I think it also helps that the main leads are actually voiced by voice actors. I thought it was Tress MacNeille there for a second doing Olive Oil, but it was actually Grey DeLisle who, if I'm not mistaken, does the voice of Vicky and Vicky from Fairly Odd Parents and Daphne from Scooby-Doo. And then, of course, as Popeye, there's Tom Kenny. And the voice he does for this, it kind of sounds once in a while like a gruff SpongeBob, but there you go. And unfortunately, I can't tell if they actually got voice actors for the rest of the roles. They probably did, and I'm just terrible at picking them up because there's no credits. So, people are probably gonna listen through it and figure out who is who in this. So yeah, I would suggest. I'm not advocating piracy at all whatsoever, but considering what Sony is doing right now, I would consider snagging this or looking at it or just thinking about it before it's all struck down, because something like this never happens. All right, have a good one.